Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wisdom Wednesdays. So happy you are here. Happy Wednesday. It is a beautiful day that we get to be together in a nurturing conversation with another wonderful social justice leader who is here to share their wisdom. Thank you all for being either here live or listening to the recording after. As I have shared before, Wisdom Wednesdays was really cultivated out of the desire to want to honor ancestors who came together in community conversations to share wisdom through storytelling, through ideas, through advice, and through opening our minds to new perspectives. So here we get to explore a different way of how we've been being in our work, how we've been doing our work, so we can continue to do the work that we love, that we want to, the positive impact we want to create in our community while preserving our well-being, because that is crucial to what we're doing here today. We need to take care of ourselves before we can continue to give back to others. So, before we get started, let me introduce myself. I'm Manuela Contreras, she, her, ella. I am the founder and chief inspiration officer of Con Fuerza Experiences. I am a Latina, caramel skin, sometimes even people say cafecito con leche skin, and I have inherited the beautiful gift of my mom's love for jewelry. So today I'm wearing my beaded necklace, bracelets, and my beaded earrings. I have my curly brown hair and this yellow top on here, and I am sitting in front of a virtual background with a cream background color and a eucalyptus branch on my left and the Con Fuerza logo on my right. And I am here to welcome us back into this space. I took a little bit of time for myself to regenerate, but ready to come back into our series here for another rest of our spring collection. And so before we jump in, I want to welcome Marcus McGrew, who is here to share his story. Marcus, welcome.
Thank you, Manuela. I am delighted to join you today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. We're so happy you are here. Before we get started, I like to do a bit of a somatic practice to get us grounded and to get us to be present here today. So for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, we like to do a somatic practice because somatic practices are a way to connect to our body. For a lot of us that have been in this world of professional and leadership and personal development, we tend to do a lot of work with our mind, which is beautiful, but our body has a lot to tell us as well. And so what somatic practices do, it gives us just a moment to connect to our body, maybe release, maybe connect, maybe ground. So I'm going to share a very gentle somatic practice that you can bring back to your practice, to your team, or just to do for yourself, maybe before a big presentation or a big day. So take a moment to just get settled into your seat. If you're driving, please either pull over or do this at a later note to make sure that you're safe. But we're just going to take a moment to get grounded in our seat. I encourage you, if you're able to place your feet firmly on the ground and place your hands, what we're going to do today is place them on our heart because they are relevant to our conversation. So I'm going to encourage you to close your eyes. And we're going to focus in on our breath. So taking a deep breath in through your nose, holding it there for just a moment, and release out through your mouth. Beautiful. Take another deep breath in through your nose, and I want you to imagine the breath going up a mountain. Up, 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 breathing in, deep, all the way up to the tippy top of the mountain. Holding yourself there at the top in a power stance. Holding that breath for just a moment. And then slowly imagining yourself release the breath all the way down the mountain, slowly, 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 slowly. As your breath continues to regulate and get settled into your body, notice how your body is feeling in this moment. As you place your hands on your heart, just take a moment to listen. What is your body sharing with you? And what is your heart needing in this moment? Maybe it's just a word of encouragement. I am capable. Or it's an awareness of I'm about to enter a difficult day, and how can I give myself grace and permission to just be myself. Take a moment to just be with yourself. And in that final deep breath, breathing in through your nose, slowly releasing your hands out to your side. Now we're going to encourage some movement. So if you're able to move your arms around, shake them out to the side. Move your legs around, roll either your neck or your shoulders back. Roll your ankles, move your legs around back and forth. And then when you're ready, bow your head and start to flicker your eyes open so you're the first thing you see as you start to join us back into our space. Great. Well, thank you for those of you that joined us in this practice. We hope that it was supportive, and just a moment to connect back to yourself as we get grounded into our space. Welcome back. Welcome back. Okay, so let's get started on this great conversation. So welcome everyone again. We are here today because we wanted to have a conversation about what it means to lead with heart. I am so grateful and privileged to have Marcus McGrew here joining us on our conversation. And Marcus and I met through Career Pathways, my last journey, professional journey. And Marcus and I instantly had this connection of this. I always say when you're with Marcus, it's simply just heart. There's this sense, this gentleness about you, Marcus, that I'm so grateful for people to experience. But as we continue to have grown our relationships, I've learned so much about your personal journey, and it felt very connected that this conversation we can have together to share out with others. And so, although I can talk about your incredible accomplishments in philanthropy and higher education and all these great places, I always say people can see that on LinkedIn. So let's hear from you a bit about your journey. So Marcus, welcome, and please tell our community here a little bit more about your journey. What led you to say yes to this conversation, and what led you to this moment in your journey?
Well, thank you very much again, Manuela. I am delighted to be with you today. I am Marcus McGrew. I am a tall, 6'4", freckle-faced Black man from the American Deep South. I said yes because of our relationship, because of the connection we made several years ago as part of Career Pathways program. And I've found you to just be a source of light and love. Manuela, there's this lightness about you that I find very warm and embracing and welcoming and embracing. So that is why I said yes. And it's a wonderful topic too. So there you go.
Oh, thank you so much, Marcus. I appreciate you. It's always so lovely to hear, the impact that we can make in each other's lives, and in the small times we've been able to spend our time together, but always with such quality. So Marcus, let's hear about more about your professional or personal journey, what feels aligned to share with you around how well-being has played a role in your life, and what this word well-being really means to you, because it means so many different things to different people.
Yeah. Well-being to me is first self-care, like being well for yourself, before you can extend your wellness to others. So that is the basis of how I think about well-being. And then the second part of how I, consider well-being is how do you show up in the external environment? An external environment is anyone other than you, any place other than your core, who you are when you're with self. And so I think about well-being in those two ways, and it has been a thread throughout my career. I've been fortunate to earn two business degrees, and I've very intentionally chose to put those credentials to work in the social sector. So I began my career as a compliance auditor at a large multi-campus district community college in Detroit, Michigan. That was 27 years ago when I made my move from Alabama, my home state, to Michigan. And my love and passion for people and their transformation is the thing that attracted me to that role. After spending 11 years in that role, from compliance auditor to an associate vice chancellor for finance and administration, earned an MBA, continued to work and earned an MBA, and thought that I would use my MBA and transferable skill set to pivot to a different career. Didn't know what it would be, but I did know I wanted to continue on in the social sector. So I discovered this wonderful opportunity at the Kresge Foundation via LinkedIn. Applied, and after 7 interviews, you heard me right, 7 interviews, I was offered an opportunity to join my first private foundation. And it was a really wonderful experience for me. And as I neared that final year, I became severely ill. I discovered in my first role at the community college district, Wayne County Community College District in Detroit, Michigan, that my blood pressure was elevated at a health fair at our downtown campus, and thought it important to see my primary physician, who did a physical examination and was able to pinpoint at that time that I had polycystic kidney disease. My father had polycystic kidney disease. It is hereditary, and it was a part of what was, causing me to experience elevated blood pressure. And so at the end of 2019, I became severely ill. I'd been, traveling to other cities, interviewing for C-suite opportunities. And on my last leg from Minneapolis back to Detroit, I was unable to, walk from the terminal back to the parking garage without stopping twice to catch my breath. So made a call to my wife, told her I was feeling unwell and that I was going to head to the emergency room. And from there, it was determined that I was dealing with congestive heart failure and polycystic kidney disease, two conditions that I inherited from my father, who, passed at 50 years. And, jumping ahead in 2020, in November of 2020, I was very fortunate to receive heart and kidney transplants back to back. Heart on Friday evening, followed by kidney transplant. And my medical team thought it wise to give my body 3 months to recover from those two surgeries. And in March of the following year, actually in February of the following year, my surgery was actually moved from March 7th to February 24th, so a week ahead due to a cancellation. My native kidneys were removed. And so that was the third and final and most excruciating of my 3 surgeries. And here I am today, still standing. So wellness is paramount to anything that you aspire to do in life, whether it is in your in career, whether in career, family, wherever your aspirations take you, always remember to center well-being, well-being.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Marcus, for sharing this very sincere and honest and vulnerable story with all of us. And I know you're an advocate. You speak on this journey that you had with your transplant in multiple spaces. And also, I think it's so important that folks can hear it, because I love what you said. I didn't even know about this until I was at that fair and I got checked. And so many of us that are in the space of leading with our heart, thinking about others, thinking about our community, we're on this constant go, go, go. And for you, well-being is physical. It is I need to take care of my physical health in order to make sure I can be here and do this work, and how important it is that we are thinking about, when are we going to check in on ourselves? When are we noticing? That's when I was saying, our body tells us so much. If our body has been screaming or trying to tell us something, how are we creating space to listen to it?
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that we can go and maybe do a follow-up and go and check in and see what's going on. And what a blessing it was that day that they checked and they said, Marcus, let's go and see what's happening over here. And most importantly, that you chose to go and listen to that. Because many times, even if we're getting alarms from our body, sometimes we don't want to listen. And so happy that you are here with us today, and you can tell us this beautiful story and encourage others to take care so much of their body and their health along this journey as well. So thank you, Marcus. This is so beautiful. And I think it really shapes, now y'all can probably hear why I said Marcus is perfect for leading with heart, because it's the physical heart of you going through that process. Did it teach you anything going through that recovery process of having that huge change in your physical body? Did that that transition teach you anything about recovering, about supporting yourself, a perspective that you can bring back to your leadership and your community?
Indeed, it has taught me a lot. It's still teaching, me in so many different so many varied ways. So for the first year post transplantation, I was in deep grief. The tears flowed effortlessly, and I was, filled with gratitude, and also, experiencing grief, knowing that someone else was no longer, and thought it necessary to be an organ donor. So I am a continuation of my life and someone else's life. So that was, what I navigated my first year. I'd say that in terms of, what the two transplants have taught me, is just to always center gratitude.
Mm.
It doesn't matter your lot in life, where you are, whether you've reached that next goal, or maybe you're down, you're not feeling your best, and might be on the verge of just throwing in the towel. I think, I believe that life test trials really come to build character, to remind us that we are stronger than we sometimes believe, that persevering through it all is worth it. And I know it doesn't feel like it in the moment. And I'd say, the most important thing that one of the most important things that, transplantations has taught me is it's all possible.
Mm.
It's all possible. Don't really care how bleak your situation may look, how you may feel. Um, it is all possible. Like, I believe all things are possible. You get to define what all or what that one thing is for you. But I'd say if you approach that issue, or you go into a situation believing that it's possible to move from where you are to an inspired future state, it will come to fruition. So it all begins in our body. We should listen to our bodies. And a part of our body is the mind. And
Mhm.
so transformation happens in the mind before it becomes a physical thing, a tangible thing that we can touch and see. So,
Mhm.
just a few of my takeaways from being almost 5 years removed from back-to-back heart and kidney transplants and nephrectomies. Nephrectomies are simply the removal of, both of my native kidneys.
Wow. Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Marcus. As you're sharing, it makes me think of one of my favorite quotes from AOC. And it's actually on my email signature. And she says, hope is not something we have, hope is something that we create with our actions.
Mhm.
And when you're talking about this, about, choosing to persevere, choosing to sit in gratitude, choosing to see these very difficult circumstances as saying, yeah, but there was someone else that chose to make a decision to give their body, and now I'm here today. And I thank you for acknowledging the grief that also comes with that, of that person, and then also that responsibility or space that you held for yourself of how I continue to hold now this life as well as mine, and how beautiful that is. But again, that hope, like that is where we have a lot of us right now have lost so much hope, seeing everything that's happening around us and feeling so hurt by so much pain that's being caused in our communities, and rightfully so. I will always hold space for that pain. I feel it myself. And also the question is right now, right? We spoke at it at peak, which is where we got to reconnect, but how
Yeah,
do we move forward?
yeah.
What do we do now, right? And I think a lot of that, for me personally, centers on the hope of not just expecting it, but creating it, of
Mhm.
seeking it, of saying, okay, yes, and how do we move forward? Yes, how do we acknowledge our feelings, hold space for that, and then still step forward because we need to. How about you, Marcus? Is there anything else that you feel like is really supporting you right now in this next, now the world, you just went through it with your body, but the world around us that's helping you move forward?
Yeah, I want to acknowledge, the family of my beloved. That's how I refer to the person who made my life today possible.
Mm.
So just really want to wrap up that point. That first year of grief for me was my own. And uh, in many ways, I believe it was a part of my beloved's grief. It took me, I think, almost 2 years to send 3 cards to his family. I didn't
Mm.
send them directly to the family. I still do not know. Um, haven't met his family. I hope that happens one day. But initial contact must be directed to Gift of Life. I provide some personal information so that they, know I am, the recipient, and then they forward that correspondence to the family. They scrub, the correspondence to make certain it doesn't have any impermissible information about me before they pass it on to the family. And so I think, I have been able to move forward with the things that help me really navigate my miraculous journey to and through heart and kidney transplants. It is love, love for self, love for other people, treating people the way I want to be treated,
Mm.
um, and knowing that there is nothing that can stand in the way of a determined individual. You
Mm.
know, I think will is very important, and I often think about sort of this question and declaration relating to will. The
Mm.
question is, question and statement is, will you? So, will you like put your best will to become the highest expression of yourself to work?
Mm.
Like, that is something that you possess. No one can give it to you. No one can take it away from you. Your will, your determination, that spirit of perseverance, fighting, not giving up on yourself, all of these things and more really help carry me through that really um, tough journey. It is the most difficult thing that I've faced in life. I was hospitalized for 53 consecutive nights. I was admitted on Friday, October 9th, and discharged on December 1st. Constant visits and overnight stays between before the surgeries happened. And so
Mm.
gratitude keeps me moving forward, paying it forward to other people, not hoarding, being selfish with all the wisdom and learning that you've acquired, but share it, pass it on so that um, we actually start to experience more collective smartness. We actually start to experience, an increase in community because we don't hoard what we have, but we share it so others can benefit from what we've learned. Sometimes it's mistakes as well as successes. So
Mm.
share.
Yes. Oh, so incredible. There was this podcast I listened to many years ago in the Future Perfect show. I don't know, Marcus, if you've heard of it. And one of their first season, they did a whole season on democracy and philanthropy, which for our philanthropy audience, highly recommend. But one of their first seasons, they did conversations on altruistic giving. Like, can you really give selflessly? Yes. And one of the episodes was on organ donations. And they said in the show, I always remember this, that the biggest impact that an organ or donor can have is giving to someone they do not know. That sometimes it's expected or maybe seen when it's someone that you know. And they talked about the rings of impact, right? And how if you receive a transplant from someone that you know, you'll be impacted in maybe 3 ripples, right? As a visual, but that when someone donates from someone you do not know, that it goes beyond that, because then maybe they're inspired or someone around them is inspired to also donate, and then it creates this long impact. It's a beautiful conversation, and it's reminding me so much of what you're saying. I'll share it in our resource page here for folks to listen to if they feel called to, but I love this of our impact, the way we simply are, the will we choose to live, the choices we choose to make, and how we are being with others can create these ripples that we may not even know about. And we talk so much about this, Marcus, you and I, and what we need to do to ourselves for that support of others. And so thank you for reminding us and grounding us in that. And I think something that you said really brings us to this next, what we want to set our foundation for with this conversation, which is you said there is nothing that can stand in between a determined individual. Oh, love that. We'll make that a quote for this conversation. But I think this really goes on what we're talking about here with what heart means. What does it lead? What does it mean to lead with heart? And the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is because if y'all have been following Con Fuerza experiences, y'all know that I talk about my audience, the folks that I love to work with, as heart-centered individuals and heart-centered organizations. Yes, organizations can be heart-centered too. We call you into it. And what does that really mean? And a mentor of mine told me a few weeks ago in a conversation of that the Latin word for heart means core. And core is what created the word courage. It's the root word for courage. And so much of what I'm hearing, you're even speaking about, Marcus, and what I think is fundamental to a characteristic about heart-centered leaders and heart-centered organizations is having that courage, of having courage to think about your will and what that will is for you, thinking about that courage to say, yes, this is difficult and I still choose to move forward, or seeing a moment of discrimination, adversity, an obstacle, not just for yourself, but for others, and having the courage to stand up and be the voice for that person if they are not in the room, or even if they are in the room, and what that means. And so I love that we can bridge this from your journey that you've demonstrated, the courage you needed to have to still say yes, and how we can bring folks in to think about, well, what does a heart-centered leader look like with courage? For you, Marcus, what does it mean to lead with heart? What resonates with you?
Yeah. The leading with heart means leading with love. And I believe Dr. King said, justice is what love looks like in public. Having spent more than a decade working in philanthropy for two esteemed private foundations, philanthropy is, the very essence and meaning of philanthropy is love of humanity. So I wonder, can you help a people without love? If love isn't a grounding principle or a guiding principle, can you really help people who you do not love? Might pacify them, might, provide them with some resources here and there. But I think the underlying value, or what should always be at the core or the center, is love for humanity. So that is the first thing that comes to mind when I think of leading with heart. The other thing that comes to mind is like being in touch with your emotions. I would say that, let me just speak for myself, growing up, boys who become men are often socialized to deny and/or suppress what they're feeling or their feelings. And there's no reason to do that. It is a part of, like, having feelings and emotions is a part of the human experience. We all have them. They're not gender-based. How they're expressed might relate to gender, but I believe that they're expressed based on how we are socialized to really either embrace or disown are the feelings and emotions that come with being a human being in and out of work settings. So love is what it means to, or love is one of the things that comes to mind for me as relates to leading with the heart, or leading with heart. And the other is just being in touch with your feelings, being able to handle a range of emotions. And I'll just wrap by saying, when I think of leading with heart, it is leading with love. Yes, it is leading with embracing your range of emotions, and it is also more than anything being in touch with the belief systems that feel how we see and treat other people and ourselves. And that requires us to really unpack the biases that we all have. Um, and that is the deep inner work that we all must do if we want to begin to lead with heart and continue to lead with heart.
Oof.
What do your belief systems tell you about yourself and other people? Do they tell you that this person is deserving of love or not deserving of love? And if they're not deserving of love, why? Is it because of who they are, where they come from? Um, the color of their skin, their gender, uh, and the list goes on. But I think it really interrogates our belief systems. It interrogates our biases. It gets under the surface, and has this way of encouraging or forcing you to have a conversation with self about where you stand. And your current state doesn't have to be your end state. You can actually do the work to move you from current state to an inspired future state.
Yeah. Oof. So rich. Marcus, I'm thinking of, before this call, we were talking about our role as coaches and what becoming a coach, how that has shifted perspectives in how we exist truthfully all around, right? Because this work is not separate from who we are. And this is so powerful in the sense that one of the first lessons I got to learn as a coach was that my role isn't to provide answers. My role is to ask good questions. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times we are encouraged to, our default is to go find answers, try to make sense of it. And even we do that to ourselves, like, oh no, I just know. I know what's right. I know what I need to do. I know all the things, right? Especially in this country, like we are set up from a young age as Americans to think like we have it all and we know it all and we know above everyone else. And I'm gonna tell y'all a secret. We don't know anything. We know very little. There's still so much that we do not know. And as much as we have all the degrees and have all this experience, there's still a lot that we will still need to be open to understanding. And so I like this, Marcus, that you're saying of how we come in from a place of curiosity, of introspective reflection, instead of a place of, I know what needs to happen. And let me be clear, I think there's a very big difference in being very clear on your values and your belief systems that you talked about. That is important for you to know. But what I'm talking about is the assumptions on other people, that we know someone because of what they look like. Thank you for acknowledging it, or where they come from, or what they've lived, or where the education is, or whatever you choose to see in someone instantly. Because that is, if 2% of what is true to be of someone. And when we can come from a place of curiosity and trying to actually know people, I think one of the biggest gifts we can give each other is actually trying to get to know each other and know and understand. And that's where I think, for me personally, and Marcus, would love your thoughts on this, is that's the bridge to love for humanity. Is when we actually get to know and meet people, we start to see that there is a bridge towards that. Because so many of us, and my brain goes there all the time, but how could I love this person that is doing that?
Yeah, I agree, Manuela. I believe we need fuller narratives about other people. That if you have 10% of a narrative about someone, you will treat them based on that 10%. But there is a much bigger, much richer narrative about people. So I think it is worthwhile to really get to know the fuller narrative about a person before you prematurely determine whatever about someone. To your point about coaching, I couldn't agree more. I mean, coaching is not about telling people what to do. It is not about solving their problems, not about solving their problems, giving advice. Coaching is essentially, a learning conversation.
Mm.
It is say for the client, it is a learning conversation about the client with some, uh, very wise leading from behind. At least that is, the methodology that I am learning about as a student at Hudson Institute of Coaching in Santa Barbara, and it is life changing. Coaching is about development and transformation. And development is always a matter of transcending an
Mm.
earlier way of thinking and including it in a new, more complex way of thinking.
Mm.
So it's about development. And once you are willing, you reach a point of readiness to do the work, to be a client, really roll up your sleeves, um, then you are on the path to transformation.
Mm.
And so I love it. I love people, and I love the power of coaching. I've had the great fortune of working with several coaches. I think about six over the course of my career.
Mm.
Charles Story is one, my first coach in philanthropy, and um, he is in large part why I've decided to, add this certification to my portfolio of skills and competencies and mindsets. Um, so it is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes. Oh, shout out to Charles. Such a beautiful soul as well. I'm so glad, and it's such so funny, right? Where life takes us that we don't even know what. And I think that's the beauty of it. When we are in that inquiry of questions and curiosity, what opens up for us of that? You could have told me, 5 years ago, I would never have told you how we would have been in this situation. But this is that being in that open space, open heart, open mind of what's possible. Oh, it's a beautiful place to be and highly encourage all of us to stand in that. And as much as we can move away from the rigidity of needing to be a certain way or exist on a certain path or exist in this, what I always say, I don't use the word supposed to, but just allow yourself to continue to learn and discover more about yourself. Oh, well, before we get too preachy, I'm curious, Marcus, because we're talking a lot about courage. We're talking a lot about, openness to seeing folks in their full humanity. And we're all human. We all have difficult, sometimes we don't make the best decisions, or sometimes we do, fall into assumptions and things like that. And I'm curious, Marcus, your perspective on if you've ever been in a situation where you've had to summon a different type of courage because you've had to make a difficult decision, or you've had to hold yourself accountable to something that you wanted to that you made a decision on and then later you learned more about.
Yeah, of course. I mean, failure is a part of life, and failing forward is a guaranteed way to success. I've had so many things to overcome from childhood to date, and I think looking back, thinking more deeply about my steps being ordered from the American Deep South to the Midwest 27 years ago, and all that I've learned along the way. Um, Fast forwarding to the heart and kidney transplants and nephrectomies. And so, one example that comes to mind is I needed to dig deep to find the courage to um, move and work in California for over 3 years. So this happened about 14 months after my third surgery. And there was just, some fear. I want to acknowledge some fear of the unknown. I had this, had these thoughts of utopia about California, and I embraced the opportunity to place myself in a new organization in a new state where I wouldn't know much about the people around me. Had a few relationships before I made the move to California, but they weren't as deep going into, this new opportunity and new state as they were when I left. So looking back, I often wonder if my relationship with work caused me to expedite, jumping back into the job market because so much of my identity at the time was tied to work. Um, and in hindsight, I believe I would have done some things a bit differently. Um, I don't think I would have passed up on the opportunity, but I think I would have negotiated a bit of a delayed start.
Mm.
You know, give myself at least another 2 to 3 months of rest because I moved to California at toward the tail end of the pandemic. And
Mm.
for the first month, I was going into the office alone. My team didn't come back into the office until a month later. So it was, new culture, new organization, new state, um, learning about my new surroundings and um, having to adapt to certain things and grappling with resisting adaptation when it violated my personal constitution and values.
Yeah. Yes. Wow. That is so real and common for us, right? When we're in that space of, oh, but I need to move forward, or I think we play a lot with this idea of like, have I been resting too much? Am I have I been sitting there? Do I need to take action? And sometimes when we rush into that, and again, there's no shame, there's no guilt. You made the best decision for what you knew to be true for you in that moment. And now as we start to make new decisions and our place, I always talk about the reality of healing, right? A lot of us think that healing is in uh, a linear path of we are going to face it, and once we have all the awareness, we're never going to have that problem ever again, or we're never going to face it in the same way, right? And that's the expectation. And the reality, it's not that healing and this development that you're talking about, this transformation that we're talking about, is cyclical. Is that we are going to be faced with a difficult circumstance again, and we are going to be faced with an opportunity of negotiating, is this aligned to me? Can I choose to push back a little bit because I'm recognizing I need more of this? We're going to be faced with those questions many, many, many times throughout our lifetimes, and especially throughout our career as we move up into these positions. And it's about that next time that happens. Oh, what did I learn about what happened before? And how can I choose to think differently, or maybe move in a different way that is aligned to me right now in this moment? And I hear that that's such a great lesson for you, Marcus, and for us, for all of us, in that negotiation. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, and when we're in those moments of negotiation, we forget to think about what else can we ask that will support us along that way. And Marcus, you talked about this, and I love that you mentioned this about, as men, the relationship to emotions, relationship to leadership, relationship to even this idea of leading with heart.
Mhm.
I would be curious. I'm curious your perspective on, like, what would you advise? Um, I mean, a man in any time of their journey, but I know we have some audience members that are early on in their journey and thinking about, well, I want to be a man that connects to my emotions or leads with heart, what would you advise them to think about and to call them in to reflect as they're trying to move towards connecting more towards their emotions and their heart?
Yeah, well, thank you, Manuela. I am just, offering one perspective. I know there are so many different perspectives out there. I would advise that you start by centering that this is a part of the human experience,
Mm,
that like we all have emotions, and it is actually it is I foresee it being an incredible part of your value proposition to self, your value proposition to a potential employer, and a value proposition in your business if you are an entrepreneur or plan on becoming an entrepreneur. So that's the first thing. I think it will offer people a fuller perspective about you. So this person has more than one emotion. I've experienced them in many varied ways. When things are going well, I experience this particular emotion. When things are going other than plan, I experience this emotion. So there's a range of emotions that we all hold,
mm,
experience over the course of our lives. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with having emotions. I think it is all about how we manage our emotions, how we use our emotions for good, um,
mm,
and to drive impact, and how we use our emotions to actually show up for ourselves and for others. It's something that is top of mind for me. So they're part of us. Easy answer. Easy answer. Not suggesting in any way that that is an easy thing to put into practice, but it's necessary. It will be worth the journey. So do it.
yes. Oh, so, so important. And I love this, and I think it's really important for us to hear that, as women that have men in our lives that are supporting and encouraging that. I talk a lot about it's once again the responsibility of the individual and the collective community around them. And so if you have a man in your life that is showing emotion, that is trying to understand their relationship with emotion, how we as a partner, as a friend, as a wife or a sister, a mother, support that man in better understanding that that's okay, that's a beautiful part of, like you said, their human existence. I have so many resources I will share in the chat because I'm deeply fascinated by this. And one I will highlight is the importance of community around this
Mhm.
topic. When you're trying to better understand this part of yourself that maybe feels foreign or disconnected from what you've seen or isn't something you've normalized, like how we find community around trying to understand that. And I have a dear friend who has community healing circles for men in Washington, D.C., for men of color, where they can come together and really explore and talk about this. So I will share that in the chat as well. So many resources that are coming up for our conversation. But I think it's important because and I used to work with the He for She initiative with the UN, and that's their belief. It's like when we can support men in understanding their role in their relationship to women and also society, it also opens us up broadly as well to a lot of the injustices and the inequities that we're seeing across the country, across the world, excuse me, which is why I just wanted, to give space to that.
Yeah,
Thank you, Marcus.
of
And
course.
one of the last things I would love for us to talk about, two last questions for you, Marcus, before we hop off is the role of the organization. So we've talked a lot about the individual and what we can each do, and to hold ourselves accountable or to take control of what's within our control. But I'm curious where you think the role of the organization is in this conversation. How can leaders and organizations create spaces that encourage and reward these heart-centered leadership?
Yeah, so share my take on where philanthropy is on this, and there's no right answer. There's a multitude of ways to take this on or to answer this prompt. I think the most courageous private foundations really encourage people to show up in truth. Others might describe it as showing up authentically. And I think it's such an important skill set to have now because we work in communities. We work with people who are closest to the issues and closest to the solutions to those issues. They live both. Both are part of their daily experience. So I think when you're in a position, not just program officer position, but that is definitely one because you tend to have more proximate relationships to folks who are grappling with these issues as a part of their daily experience. To the extent that you're able to bring the best of your heart, the best of your empathy, and the highest expression of self into your work, I think the more tangible, indelible impacts you'll have. I think the two are connected or interrelated. So there's this relationship that centers people, and when you center people, you don't really get to pick and choose, or I wouldn't advise that you choose. Like, people are people. We come with successful track records, and we also come with struggles that we've overcome and that we may still be overcoming. But people are people. And so I think meeting people where they are, like being able to accept their current situation and introducing them to a path forward that leads to an inspired future state is a part of the work. As I think about philanthropy and how we think maybe a 3 or 4 year grant will solve problems that have been around forever and a day. I think there's a disconnect there, and I know that annual grant budgets are real. No foundation has unlimited funds, and foundations have a lot of latitude about whether they choose to exceed the 5% minimum payout requirement. So won't go into much detail about that, but the point I really want to connect on here, Manuela, is we have to show up as whole people because we're dealing with whole people. We don't get to pick and choose the parts of a person we like. We're dealing with whole people, and we're dealing with whole people who exist in systems, whether that system is their family, it could be their workplace, it could be a friend group, it could be a spiritual practice. We deal with whole people who live in various systems. They're always navigating various systems.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And how beautiful that we can acknowledge that. And I mean, we might need to have a whole other conversation on philanthropy specific tasks that they can do to this, because I know you have a lot of rich knowledge on this. But I think you shared so many rich ideas and advice for folks to really open themselves up to what it means to hold space. Really, that's what we're asking you, holding space as organizations for heart-centered leaders. The last question I would love to know from you, Marcus, as we wrap up our time, sadly, is the question I ask all of our guests. Living a life con fuerza is about reclaiming our inner power to live in alignment with our values. How are you choosing to live a life con fuerza? And what does living a life con fuerza, which means with strengths for those of you who don't know in Spanish, mean to you?
Oh, yeah. Wow. We're ending on such a hefty question here. Uh, so, what does it mean to me? Um, so, living a life with strengths means um, a few things. First, if you're going to make this journey, um, you must be strong. And I think, there are different things that arise in life that are solely intended to make us strong, to make us stronger, to build character, to increase our ability to persevere through it all. And if you can visualize, a staircase, um, every step has a purpose. The one before helps elevate you to the next, and it continues on. So living life with strengths to me means that you persevere, that you learn along the way, and if you fall, you get back up and keep moving forward. There's this wonderful quote, part of a quote that I absolutely love. The top of one mountain is the bottom of the next. Keep climbing. So I think that is strength, that is perseverance, that is sort of acknowledging that process leads to promise, that there are no shortcuts, there's no bypass to promise, but that process leads to promise. And if you embrace the process, when you reach promise, you'll be stronger, you'll be able to persevere, you'll be able to stand against the forces and the wiles that may come to, that may try to defeat you or to distract you from your purpose. And so that is what strength means to me. You keep moving. You keep moving. It's all working for your highest good. So keep moving.
Oh, such a beautiful way to end our conversation. Thank you so much, Marcus. Absolutely. The step by step. And I love that, the climb by climb, the mountains that we each get to experience, and all of these have a purpose. Thank you for ending us on such a profound reflection and calling us into thinking. It is possible. We can absolutely continue to move forward. Thank you, Marcus. It has been such a joy to have you here, to be in community, for our communities to hear your wisdom. I'm so glad and so grateful to you. Is there any way that we can support you? Any final thoughts or remarks that you would like to share?
Only my gratitude again for inviting me to join you on Wisdom Wednesday. It has been my pleasure and honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcus. We're so grateful to experience you and see you. And there's so much coming your way. So, everyone, please, please follow Marcus on LinkedIn. See as he finishes his certification on coaching and gives us the world his gifts as well in coaching space. See what will come there. And follow and look at the resource page where you can find all of the links to Marcus's work and past interviews he's also done, and all the rich resources we've talked about sharing there today. Just before everyone hops on, I would love to let everyone know that Con Fuerza is currently accepting clients for holistic leadership coaching. So if you're looking for support in exactly what we're talking about here today, how we lead with heart, how we lead with courage, how we support each other in taking steps towards, Marcus, what you called us into recognizing, being able to when we get to that top of the mountain, being able to enjoy it. Because when we rise and aren't sustainable in our efforts to do that, we get burnt out or we get exhausted or we can't embrace all the greatness that we've worked so hard for. So with holistic leadership coaching, I support and work alongside you to explore how we sustainably grow, how we sustainably reach your career goals and desires, so we can continue to do the beautiful work that you love for a long time. So reach out to me. I'm doing a special offer for my birthday month in May. And if you sign up before May 23rd, you get a credit bonus that you can apply to your contract. Okay, so thank you all for joining. We will be back on May 28th with Wendy Amada, where we're going to talk about intuitive leadership, how we connect to our intuition, and as a way to be able to lead and also acknowledge the data and all the wonderful things we need to make decisions, and also how your greatest wisdom and power to making decision actually comes from what you have within you, and trusting that. So come on down. We'll see you on May 28th, and so you can hear about what that looks like. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your Wednesday, and we'll connect very soon. Great.